everybody. Again, welcome. We're excited because we're talking about the top 10 mistakes that salespeople make. That should probably have other salespeople make. Because we know if you're on here, then you probably were preaching to the choir. But it's always more fun to learn from other people's mistakes. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I have to make them the hard way. How about you, Leah?
Yes, absolutely. You don't forget them when you do it that way.
You don't and hopefully you learn it the first time at that
Right.
point. So it's when we repeat those things over and over that it becomes a challenge. So allow me to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kimberly Mackey. My company is New Home Solutions Consulting. And what I do is I am a sales management consultant, and people go, what the heck is that? What do you do? Well, I'm the person that people call to make sure that sales is the engine that drives the train. I've done just about everything you can think of in home building, including build. I've worked in purchasing. I mean, I've really literally done it all if it's in a home building company. And so I like to put the parts and pieces together to make sure that, again, sales is driving the engine and not running it off the track. So whether we're keeping that sales pace where it's supposed to go, making sure we're profitable, and keeping an eye on land for those of you don't want to run out of land. And that's something right now we're all doing, that sales throttling thing. So if I can help you build your customer experience and make sure that again, every year crossing those T's and dotting those I's all the way through the process and don't have any bottlenecks, give me a shout. So, and with that, I'm going to let my friend Leah take it away and talk to you about her role at Melinda Brody & Company.
Well, hey there. I am happy to be here. Thank you, Kimberly. Excited to be on the head-to-head today. And I am the sales coach and trainer with Melinda Brody & Company. Melinda Brody & Company is one of the premier video shopping companies in the country. And I know a lot of salespeople are like, video shopping. So we're going to talk a little bit, debunk the myth of video shopping. And I've had the honor of being affiliated with Melinda Brody & Company for 10 plus years. Ben Marks, who is the president, is joining us today as well. He took over the reins about 5 years ago. So we continue to be the premier video shopping company. We've expanded based on last year. So not just video shops, but we do virtual shops, competitive shops, you name it, we do it. We're kind of a pivoting company. If our clients have the need, we do that. When I'm not doing that, I'm a sales coach and trainer as well, and just work primarily in the real estate and new home building construction industry. Kimberly and I go way back. We met when we both started and when we were in the building industry. So it's my honor to be here today, Kimberly. Thank you for having us.
So this is a lot of fun for me. I mean, it's always fun when I can have my friends on the program, and especially, I think this program was designed to allow people to be a fly on the wall and even participate in conversations that you and I would have, whether we were on camera or not. I mean, these are some of the things that we really do go head to head on and we talk about.
Oh yeah. So, didn't we just do it yesterday? We were on the phone head to head, but we didn't have makeup on. We didn't look quite as cute as we do today, but yeah, you guys are like a fly on the wall to many of our conversations over the years.
So it all comes together. So a little bit about us, in case, we're not kidding when we say we go way back. We are travel buddies. We do remember the Alamo. And we have a thing about taking selfies and selfies in front of animals. We especially like them when they end up on John Palumbo's head. This had to go in there because John's like, that monkey is never going to get off my back. So no, John, this one's for you. The monkey will not get off of your back. So. And we train together. So we've done new homes construction training, teaching realtors how to sell new homes. Leah is one of my partners with that. When I can't be somewhere, she's who I call to go, hey, can you teach this class? So it's amazing to have that partnership. And then we travel together and train. This picture was taken up in Jacksonville in I think it was 2019.
Right.
Yep.
Right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic, when we could all still travel. And there's a cute picture of Ben Marks. So there's Ben, in case, for those of you who wanted to know what he looks like. So yeah, see, Ben, see, you get behind that camera every once in a while.
That's right.
And then I did promise that Elvis would make an appearance. So for those of you who don't know who Elvis is, Leah, tell us about Elvis.
Elvis is my 1,800-pound black Angus steer pet. I have a lot of people ask me, well, is he going to be a hamburger, or is he going to end up on somebody's plate next to a baked potato? And the answer is no. He's my pet, and as you can see, he's very loving. When Kimberly comes out here to my 5-acre farm in Dade City, the first thing she wants to do, not hang out with me, but run out and feed Elvis. So
well,
you can see I put little bows in his hair, and we pet him, and he's really just like an 1,800-pound golden retriever or lap dog. Wouldn't you agree, Kimberly?
As long as he doesn't step on your toe.
Exactly.
1,800 pounds on your toe hurts.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so you guys know I have my horse, and Leah has a steer, so the steer is far more interesting.
So we talk livestock too, right?
Yes.
We share livestock tips when we're not talking new home sales.
We even share a vet. So
yes, we do.
Later on today, guys, if you don't get enough of me on here, then I would, and you're a member of NAHB, I would invite you to join me with Chris Hartley, who's the VP of Sales from K. Hovnanian Homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we're going to be talking about delivering the dream despite the unexpected. It's all about the customer experience and what a nightmare it is in today's climate, you know, the one where everything's changing every 3 seconds, and, you know, and then it changes back, and the media doesn't help because now they're all going out there going, oh, yay, lumber futures have dropped. Yeah, but the prices haven't. So there's a difference in what a future is. So now we all have to be like, we have to be amateur armchair economists to know what's happening out there. So anyway, Chris and I are going to tackle that at 2 o'clock today. So you can register. I shortened it. It was a big old long URL. So just go to tinyurl.com, NAHB webinar, and that'll get you there. And I am taking July off from head to head, but I'll be back in August with just too much going on in July. So August 10th, Mike Lyons, the one and only, is joining me. Who knows where this conversation will go.
He's awesome. If you've not seen him, make sure you tune in.
So it should be a lot of fun. So now we've gotten all the housekeeping out of the way. Guys, feel free to chime into the chat. You are part of this conversation. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions, comments, stories, whatever, go ahead and share that in the chat. And Leah, let's go into Melinda Brody and Company. Blah, 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 blah. I'll get that out eventually. And you do these benchmark studies, and I think that's a really good place to kind of kick things off.
I agree with you. This is one thing that Melinda Brody and Company has been doing for 30 years. And what we do is we compile all the information from the video shops from year prior, and we give it a score based on all of the scores. So we're talking about, in an average year, 45 different builders, maybe 1,200 to 1,500 different sales associates from across the country. So we take all of those scores and come up with a national average. So the slide that you guys are looking at right now is comparing 2019 and 2020. And the scores are in categories as approach and introduction, your meet and greet, builder story, model demonstration, home site demonstration, closing, and follow-up. And Kimberly, I think the cool thing to mention here is in the 30 plus years that we've been putting this program, this benchmark together, typically closing is the bottom last on the rung of scoring. But if you'll look this year, under 2020, builder story. So what we've been seeing, we were noticing a trend in that the builder story is less and less salespeople are talking about the builder story. So what that's telling you is only 48% of the 100% of the sales associates that we shopped in 2020, only 48% told a builder story. Go down to closing, only 49% actually suggested moving forward with a close. And I have to interject here that when we send our buyers in, and Kimberly, you know this, they are ready, willing, and able buyers when our video mystery shoppers are. So this is a really cool report, and it helps us to kind of track what the trends are, what we're seeing. It also helps from a training standpoint. When we go in later, we can say, okay, looks like you guys are doing great at model demo and approach and introduction, but you may need some additional training on follow-up or closing. So this is kind of our crystal ball in the Melinda Brody and Company world. And I just think it's really, really relevant when we're talking today about some of the mistakes that salespeople can make out there.
So and here it is, guys, in black, white, and red, but black and white, you can see. I mean, we've talked about for years that 50% of all sales encounters, not just in new homes, all sales encounters end without inviting the person to own whatever the product is.
Correct.
And here it is. Here it is. It's right there. So, you know, if you're going to be in sales and you're not inviting people to own whatever it is you're trying to sell, in this case, our homes,
right.
I mean, come on. Well,
and look, Kimberly, the other thing that is always astonishing to me is follow-up. Like, especially last year, if you take 2020, which was our pandemic year, only 51% of those sales associates followed up. That's probably the easiest thing to do on this chart. And when we rank follow-up, we rank it as some type of a follow-up, whether it's an email or a phone call or something within a 24 to 48 hour period. So just barely half of the people are following up. So that's kind of astonishing to us as well.
So CRM, anybody?
Exactly.
Come on. You know, you want to talk about the reason, and builders, if you do not have a good CRM, and I'm going to go out there and say this, if you're using your, I don't want to call out their name, but if you're using your product that you use to do your scheduling and to take pictures of what's going on the home site and share that with the buyer, and just to track your communication once the contract, once you've started building, and you're thinking that company has a CRM, they do not. I can't tell you how much time I spend with builders who go, oh yeah, I have a CRM, and then they tell me what it is, and I'm like, so no, you don't have a CRM. We're gonna have to work on that.
Right.
So
no excuse not to follow up.
No, and there's so many of them out there that you can use. So thanks, Amy. Amy says she wishes that they were on the call to hear that. So they might be. You never know, Amy. We got a bunch of people on here, so who knows who's listening. But hopefully that message does get through, that if you're not following up in a way that is personal, relevant, meaningful, and timely, you're missing out. Yeah.
Don't do it.
And right now people are going, why bother? We have more sales. We have more people who want to buy our homes than who are coming, who we can sell to.
Guys, it's not going to last forever.
No, and it's already there's already chinks in the armor for sure. So
yes.
Yes, absolutely. So Carol asked if yes, we are recording, Carol. So you will absolutely, if you have to pop in and out, no worries there. So let's move on and let's talk about some of the crazy things. I think that's a good place to kick off. So what are some of the craziest things that you've seen when you're looking at video shops?
Well, Kimberly, it's funny you say that, because in my history with Melinda Brody and Company, I have watched literally thousands and thousands of video shops, and Ben puts out a newsletter each month called Sales Tips and Clips. So if you aren't already getting that, please be sure to go to melindabrody.com and sign up for it, because we have a portion in the newsletter called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And we highlight different things that we've seen on video shops. And whenever I'm out and about talking to people, clients, etc., they'll say, Leah, there's no way that happened. You have to be making this stuff up. And Ben and I just laugh and go, we couldn't make this up. I mean, we're creative and fun, but some of the things that we've seen, you just can't make up. I've got a couple favorites, but I think my all-time favorite was when the gentleman was taking the prospect out to the home site. They had a wonderful conversation, all engines go. He gets out on the home site. He's out there literally a minute and a half, Kimberly, and he pulls out a cig.
No.
Yes, ma'am. Lights a cigarette. Now you think that's bad. I'm like, okay, that's one cig. But after number 2 and number 3, I was like, oh my goodness, this is cray cray. So I think that probably is the pinnacle. I've only seen it once. Hopefully we'll not see it again. But we've seen things from, people eating their lunch while the prospects are there, people painting their fingernails. We have seen a recent one was, let's see, somebody had called Uber Eats and ordered their food.
What, while they were working with the prospect?
Yes, and
Did
basically
they order
said,
food for the prospect too?
no, no, no. They were like, hey, I'm waiting on my Uber Eats to show up. So why don't you go ahead and start walking around the model and I'll catch up with you after my, Egg McMuffin shows up. So we've really seen everything. Some of the outfits that we've seen look more like people are going clubbing versus presenting a sales presentation. So you just have to laugh at some of this. And again, it's not everyone. For the most part, the salespeople are doing a fantastic job, but every now and then you just see something that makes you go, what? Are you kidding me? So it's been quite a journey watching some of these video shops. It's like I said, you can't make it up. You really can't.
That's crazy. I have a thing about flip-flops for
Ew.
2 reasons. Number one, if your article of clothing is an onomatopoeia, which means it makes the sound of what it is, then perhaps that's not something you should be wearing in a professional setting. So,
oh my gosh. How often do you get to say that word, onomatopoeia? Not
yeah, I
very
love
often.
that. Yeah, I love that word. So that's one of those that stuck with me in
Yes.
like 5th grade when I learned it,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's a big one. But where I don't want to lose out on a sale because I don't want to mess up my pedicure, or I'm afraid of being bit by a snake, or I won't go out on site.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to get a nail in my toe. I have been guilty as an on-site agent. I've scaled a few 2x4s in 4-inch heels. I don't recommend it. That could be part of what's wrong with my hips today. So I definitely don't recommend it. But
right.
Keep some shoes that allow you to do your job while still remaining professional.
I was just going to say, our moms were right when they said, wear sensible shoes. Always have a pair of sensible shoes in your car for walking the home site. So very important.
And
you're right.
You can have cute, sensible shoes. So fellas, you too. You can have cute, sensible shoes. The guys are like, why are we talking about?
They don't care about you.
No, exactly. So. All right. Yeah, I've definitely seen some crazy things out there. So if you're going to eat, have enough for your prospects, share. I used to cook on Sunday morning in my model center.
As long as it's something nice like chocolate chip cookies, that's one thing. But no tuna fish, no leftover Chinese
nothing
food.
Nothing that's going to stink up. Yeah, nothing that's
exactly.
Stink up the place. Yeah.
Exactly.
And burned popcorn smells really bad, by the way. I did when we first came out with the microwaves that had the automatic popcorn setting. So
yes.
Yeah, I burned some popcorn in the model. So that
we forgive
popcorn. I put it in, and then I had the small little bag. So I walked away and left it. Not good. Not cool at all. Yeah, we had to open all the windows that day. So stuff does happen. We get it, but we do need to put our best foot forward. And sometimes because we're out in the field and, we're just so separated from everybody, I know that it gets hard and you can get away from these things. Let's, so aside from the funny things that happen, so that's number 1, we promised 10 things today. So number 2 was not building rapport. And I know when I did the poll on the Sales and Marketing Power Hour Facebook group, this was the number 1 thing that people chose, was that on-site agents and actually I see this with general real estate agents too. So I know we have some general realtors on, not building rapport. I just coached one this week and I said, she's trying so hard to help this buyer. And I asked her some questions and clearly she hadn't dug deep enough to understand. And I'm like, go back, go through my discovery questions, and you got to get this information, because if you can't understand their why, how are you going to help them?
And it's not only that too, Kimberly, it's just what I've seen from watching shops is when the prospect comes in, the salesperson immediately wants to get into sales mode, and they don't take that 10, 15 minutes to start building rapport, asking the questions, getting the information. I mean, it's a proven fact that people will work with people that they know, like, and trust. And if you're immediately jumping into the sales presentation, you haven't had time to develop that rapport. One of the books that both Kim and I are very familiar with is Ninja Selling. It's one of the Berkshire Hathaway programs, but in Ninja Selling, they refer to it, the best way to build rapport is through the Ford mechanism, which Ford, F-O-R-D, stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Once you start getting your prospects to talk with you about that and share this information, number one, you're getting great information to be able to personalize and customize your sales presentation. And number two, you're allowing them to open up and engage with you, which automatically starts to develop a trust. I mean, we have to be honest, sales in general, a lot of people don't trust salespeople. Wonder why, right? But if you take the time at the beginning and spend that to get to know them and build that trust and build that rapport, that's going to make the rest of the sales presentation better. I can typically tell in watching video shops if they're going to be successful or if they're going to flop within the first 5-10 minutes. And a huge part of that is building rapport. Did they start to ask those questions, or did they immediately say, hey, let's go take a look at the model? So the tip here is spend 10 minutes, invite them into the kitchen. Hey, Kimberly, you and I have talked about this. I'm getting ready to get a cup of coffee. Join me in the kitchen. Pour a cup of coffee. You're not sitting in the sales office. It's not intimidating, and have that opportunity. Tell me a little bit about yourself, about your family. What is it that you do? I cannot stress the importance of building rapport enough.
That's so true. I once was in a model center working with a new trainee, and I spent 25 minutes talking to a gentleman about Harley Davidson motorcycles, because that was his motivation for moving. He wanted a tandem garage where he could work on his Harley Davidsons. Now, I know what a Harley is. I know what a Harley Davidson sounds like, because very unique sound, right? I know that it was started in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I know that every week is Bike Week in Daytona, because I've been there, and it's always Bike Week. But there's also Sturgis out west. I don't know when that happens, but I know it's in the summer sometime, because I've been out west and I see lots of people on motorcycles. So beyond that, I also know that chrome is good. More chrome is better. So after that, I'm done. I'm like, there's no depth to this conversation with me, but I can ask questions if that's somebody else's passion.
Right. And you know that that's important to them. And Kimberly, I don't recall, like at IBS last year or the year before, they had the chief marketing officer of Harley Davidson speaking at one of the presentations. And you talk about a company that has created a brand. Yeah. I mean, people get the logo tattooed. Do you know any home builders that are doing that? They have created a brand, a tribe. So, but the key is, Kimberly picked up on something that was very important to this person. So I'm sure that as you went through the sales presentation, you were dropping, little, oh, your Harley would look good here, and look how close you are to, trails where you can take your motorcycle. So it's gaining those tidbits of information that are going to make the world of difference in being able to customize your presentation.
Yeah, and it's just asking questions. I mean, curious people. Ford is just a great thing. So even if you're just going to a cocktail party or a networking reception, use Ford to talk to people.
Right.
So it's just polite conversation.
And people love to talk about themselves. Let's face it. You ask questions, they're going to open up and tell you everything you need to know to sell them a home.
Yeah. Those discovery questions, if you want them, they're actually handout on my website. So it's free. There's no obligation to do anything else. You can just download them for free. It's actually a pop-up that will come up on my website. So you just put your info in and it sends them right to you. Let's talk about number 3. So,
oh my gosh, this is one that's near and dear to my heart. I do, as you know, a training program on overcoming objections. I'm passionate about overcoming objections. And I think that what happens is salespeople kind of get, oh my gosh, we don't like the answer no. We don't like things to not be A-okay and happy. So when we get objections, our first impulse is we got to solve it or run away from it. So when I train, I teach a 4-step method for overcoming objections. The reason I'm bringing it up is twofold. I've seen it as an issue before, but what I really want to stress is, based on this market in this past year, our library of objections is very different now. It's not so much this home is too close to the highway, or I don't have any mature trees, or this bedroom is too small. We've got a whole new litany of objections that as salespeople we need to be able to address. And with our realtor community, there's some builders out there that are changing commission structures. That's an objection with our realtors. Some of our builders have escalation clauses. Some of our builders' build time has increased from 7 months to 12 months. We've got issues getting appliances, windows, different things like that. So there's a whole new slew of objections. And I'm adamant about role playing and working through how to overcome these objections, working with your sales manager so that you as a salesperson are able to overcome the objection and don't do what we say, stick your head in the sand, blah, 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 blah. It'll go away, because they don't. We both know what happens when you don't overcome an objection. I call them bombs. They'll blow up in your face. So you need to learn how to confidently overcome objections and be aware that there's a whole new set of objections that are out there in the market today.
And sales managers, your role right now is you need to be training for these. Teach your sales team, first of all, they should have always known how to do this, but how to review the contract. If you're not going over that contract with people, and don't dismiss and say, oh yes, there's an escalation clause in here, but we've never done that to anybody. It's just there just in case. No, what if that's the buyer that you have to use that escalation clause with? So instead, set expectations. If it's in the contract, it should have teeth. That's a reason it's written, it's in writing. And your sales skills now, while it's less difficult to find a buyer who wants to buy your homes, it's more difficult to keep them engaged and happy and part of the contract. And I think that's where the key is right now. So I'm working with a builder in Virginia and Maryland right now, and we have done extensive trainings talking about, okay, let's use our sales skills to manage our pipelines. So once we have these buyers, because they're doing lotteries up there for their homes, they have limited releases and they do a lottery. And then the key is, okay, people buy because fear of missing out, right? And then they take what they get. Well, then the questions start after you have them on contract. That's when the real trick for the customer experience kicks in. So you've got to be able to overcome objections like, oh, I don't want those floors. I wanted these floors, and whatever that is. So hear the objection. Sometimes that's the hardest, because sometimes we're just shutting people down.
Exactly. Hear it and acknowledge it. I think that's, and ask questions. What our salespeople typically have, and most people do, when we get an objection, the first thing we want to do is solve it.
And it may not even be an objection. It might be a statement.
Exactly. And it may not be something we can solve, but we don't know this until we get the information. Ask questions. When you're faced with an objection, tell me why that's a concern to you. What is it that bothers you about that? Why is this important to you? Get that information, because as you just said, it may not be an objection. It could be an observation. It could be a multitude of things, but our first response as salespeople is hurry up and solve it and move on. But you really can't solve it unless you get the information you need to determine where this objection is really coming from.
Yeah, here in Florida, one of my favorite ones is the yard is small. And you'll hear people just like, oh, well, you have to understand. And they just regurgitate all this stuff. Oh, the growing season is 365 days a year, and we don't have real grass. We have St. Augustine. You don't want to be playing out in that stuff anyway. And they just on and on and on. And it could be, a lot of times we get a buyer who's coming from the Midwest, or they're coming from somewhere else, and they're going, look at this yard. It's big enough. I could have my pool. I could have this. I can have that. But I don't have to mow all the time. I don't have to spend every day of the weekend taking care of my yard. This is manageable. You're not going to know unless you stop and you ask those questions.
Dig deeper. It's like peeling the layers off the onion. Dig deeper. What they throw out at you at first is probably not the whole story. And back to
the good stinky part.
Exactly. And with the yard thing, here's my response to the yard thing. They drove into the community. They saw those yards. They still came into your sales office. So sometimes, and we all know that type of person, they're just going to throw objections your way left and right. It's just their personality. So that's why it's so good to dissect these objections, find out what the root is, and then see if you can overcome it. But key point being, understand that the objections of 2 years ago, they're still there, but we have a whole new set of objections coming in as well.
Yeah. So, but when you've learned how to overcome objections and you've learned to ask questions, and of course, my very favorite question, when you don't know enough to know what to ask, just turn it into whatever they said. Take it and turn it into a question. This yard is small. If you put the emphasis on the last word, all of a sudden it's a question. And then zip. If you ask a question, zip, shut up, people, and listen to the answer. That one is huge. When we start overcoming objections, we just blah, 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 blah right through it. So yeah, that one's huge. So,
Yeah.
and that one is ongoing. That one is you know, no, it doesn't matter what the market is.
It ain't going away anytime soon. Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to have that one. So let's talk about, particularly with today's market, some rust building up, a little bit of complacency that we might be seeing out there. So what are you seeing with the shop?
I am seeing that people are getting complacent, and I do think that a lot of it has to do with this market. You've got, we talked a little bit yesterday, Kimberly, and I feel like two words, frenzy and frustration. We've got a frenzy going on and we've got frustration. So a lot of times when your buyers are walking in, they're just like, what do you have for sale? I want to buy it. And we've become almost like order takers. Well, I've got, this is what we've got on this release. This is what I've got available. And there's just such a frenzy and frustration out there that I think sometimes we're not necessarily, because we're not being asked to or forced to go through the steps of a normal sales presentation. And I remember coaching a couple of years ago, we had a builder that they video shop their team every year. And I had met this young lady, in the first year that she got video shopped, her score was like a 43. And for those of you who don't know, that your score should be like, it could go up to 100, but she wanted to excel so bad. So throughout the year, she worked really hard. The next time that I coached her, her score was 100. That's almost unseen. So I said to her, I'm like, how do you explain going from a 43 to a 100? And she said, you know what, Leah, I treat everybody that walks into my sales office as if they were a video shopper. And I go through the entire sales presentation, soup to nuts, every bit of it. She's like, that's my training. And it worked. I mean, her number went sky high. And she said, so it was great practice for me. Plus, on the flip side, you're giving your client the ultimate experience. So you don't want to shortchange your client just because of today's climate. And as Kimberly and I know all too well, and a lot of you on this call do as well, what goes up eventually comes down. So use this time to be able to perfect and master your craft. You know, don't shortchange it. It's a great opportunity to really perfect your sales presentation.
Yeah, and people are thinking that, you know, that it's just that great or they're that great right now. And I think that's a mistake, because what's happening is we're seeing buyer fatigue. It is a real thing. Buyers are dropping out of the market. I'm having on-sites that are telling me, hey, it's getting harder and harder. I'm having to work harder for these sales. But what we're seeing is that smaller pool of buyers now that are still trying to buy a home are going everywhere. Mm-hmm. So even within your own company, you may be competing. If you have the same home in 2 or 3 different communities, then they may be registering that community and the next one, and anything that's close by that just is within that price range, these buyers are registering. So if you're not building that rapport with them, if you're not setting yourself apart, when it comes time that you can write the sale, because not everybody can write sales when, you know, just whenever. They're limited. Everybody's throttled. They can only write so many per month. Right. Then you're going to lose them because they already, the time just came up on another location. It was simply timing. So again, that building that rapport, going through all of these steps with them, because they're not, Amy just chimed in on the chat, and thank you, Amy. Amy's been in Florida looking for a home, and in looking for a home, she's seen a lot of this. So as a sales manager from another area, it was great to get her perspective. And I was thrilled to be able to spend some time with Amy while she was in Tampa to learn what she was seeing out there. And she's saying, you know, people were just like, go through the models. Yeah. You know, they're just letting people go and not going through all of those steps.
No, and you're doing your buyers a huge injustice by not doing that, because I don't want to date myself, but Melinda Brody used to always say, anybody that comes through your sales office, pretend it's Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Now, of course, they're divorced and 18 kids later, but get excited about that, because even though you're doing this several times a day, it's their first opportunity to come in. They deserve that type of presentation. And one thing I'll jump on that, just to add to what you said, somebody in the chat said back to the basics. Absolutely. This is the time to get back to the basics and not rest on your laurels. And one thing that has always been important, but I think is even more important now when you're doing your sales presentation, is empathy. You must be able to show empathy, because as I said, there's a frenzy and a frustration. Buyers are tired. Buyers are frustrated. Show them that I understand where you're coming from. I feel your frustration. Empathy is probably more important today than ever. I mean, it's always important, but now more than ever because of this market.
Yeah, put yourself in their shoes. You know, during this whole thing, I sold my home, had to move into an Airbnb. And then after that, moved again into a brand new home. And I got to tell you, even as somebody in this industry who does it every day, there were frustrations. There were things. And thank goodness my salesperson was amazing. And so she always treated me as a human being, not just Kimberly Mackey, you know. And that was our deal in the very beginning was, hey, treat me just like you would anybody else. If you would tell somebody else, don't assume I know it. And you're right, Matt, get back to basics. Absolutely. As a sales manager, and I know that Matt does this, he's a great sales manager, but get out there and role play. I know salespeople hate it, and salespeople are going, gonna hang up from the call now, Kimberly. Don't want to be on here if you're gonna be talking about the role play word. But guys, you're not going to get any better if you don't practice it. So it's time to do this stuff so you don't get complacent, because we saw this before. It's a different time. They're totally different circumstances, but when this market changes,
and it will,
there will be those who are left standing because they use this time to grow themselves. And then the others who got more complacent, and they're going to find out that they're not that great.
Yeah. And Amy just mentioned the salespeople are exhausted too. And Amy, you're absolutely correct. So I certainly don't want to, dismiss that fact. It's that frustration and frenzy is on both sides of the platform. And so I get it. A lot of times they're not being given the right information. So what I strongly suggest at that point, this is speaking more towards your sales managers, is understanding that there is a frustration with the sales team, making sure when you do your one-on-ones that you're allowing them just to verbalize, hey, it's frustrating. I've got realtors yelling at me. I got buyers yelling at me. I got prospects yelling at me. And you're the front line. The salesperson is the front line. So it is very, very important to recognize they've got a level of frustration going on too. So I really, want to encourage sales managers to understand that. And I know that sales managers can't tell you everything. We can't tell what all the corporate stuff that's coming out there. But what you have to be able to do is recognize that these are your frontline heroes. So you want to keep them motivated. You want to keep them positive. You want to keep an open line of communication with them. Help them to not become complacent. It's hard sometimes to get excited when you're getting beat up every single day. So, both sides, we've got to work from the management side as well as the salesperson side.
Yeah, that poll that I mentioned in the Sales and Marketing Power Hour, I got great responses on the poll. It was phenomenal. And that's it's in a Facebook group. So if you're not part of it, I invite you to look it up and join us. But in there, I also got private messages and people saying, hey, I didn't want to really put this in the poll, but you got to know. And that was one of the things, is the exhaustion factor. A lot of people that I knew when I was in on-site sales, 100 years ago, or now they've retired because of this. They're like, nope, don't want to be part of this. It is exhausting.
It is. It's hard enough in a normal market,
Yeah, it's a tough job.
It is a tough job, and it's even tougher now. So it's just empathy all the way around for your sales team, for your prospects, for your buyers in the pipeline that may have delayed. We all need to show, in this world in general, a little more empathy and a little more compassion.
Yeah,
right?
Even if you can just be a listening ear for your salespeople. If you can do anything about schedules and change schedules up so you're always covered, but maybe not everybody is there all the time, so that people do get a little extra breathing room.
Right.
Still not, they still need to do their job, but yeah, absolutely. So let's move on and talk about, I know this one's really important to you, the builder's story. And let's
Yes.
define a little bit about what we mean by builder's story. So when I'm talking builder story, I want to talk about your unique selling propositions. What makes builder A different than builder B, not by comparing and going, well, builder A, no, never that. But you talk about what you do well, the things that set you apart in your marketplace. Because again, that buyer is going around, they're registering everywhere right now. So Leah, you
Yeah.
see this firsthand with these shops. So let's hear
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's definitely knowing what your USP is, your unique selling proposition, and making yourself memorable, because you're right. They are going to multiple builders. They're getting packets and packets and packets of information. By the time they hit the third builder, they forgot who the first builder was. So what are you doing? It's twofold. What are you doing as a salesperson to make yourself memorable? And what are you doing that when they get home, they're going to remember, you know what? That Kimberly at Builder ABC had a really good vibe about that. So it's USP, but make it memorable. It can't be, we're a quality builder since 1902, quality construction. Well, at this point in my world, I hope you're a quality builder. Otherwise, I hope and pray. What is it though that sets you apart and is going to make you memorable? But the biggest concern to me with sales folks is, like you saw the benchmark study, the builder story continues to get lower and lower and lower on that study. So we aren't even bringing up the builder. So one of the things, when I talk to salespeople, they're like, well, it sounds corny to go, hey, can I tell you about ABC Builder? And I'm like, I get that, but you don't want to, sound cornball. But what about if you say, hey, have you ever built a new home before? Yes or no? Tell me a little bit about that experience. Great. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Well, now if you would mind, allow me to share a little bit about my builder. This allows you to find out, number one, if they've ever built a home before, because there's a big difference in somebody who's gone through that build process versus somebody who has not. Number two, it allows them to share with you hot buttons. So if they said, yeah, I did build a home before, and that builder, he nickeled and dimed me, they never communicated, it was a horrible experience. So now you know what their hot buttons are. Well, let me share with you how we, Builder ABC, will communicate with you. Your salesperson will be calling you on a weekly basis. Our prices are transparent. What you want to do, and back to building rapport, is find out what their hot buttons are, relate to those hot buttons. Now you've got a memorable builder story. But for goodness sakes, you've got to be able to incorporate your builder, because especially in this market of frenzy and frustration, where they're just going anywhere and everywhere. Do you have anything to sell? Do you have anything to sell? What's going to set you apart from the competition and make you memorable? I mean, that's a biggie for me, is just making sure that your builder is your brand, right? And we are brand ambassadors in a sense. So you want to make sure that your brand is being represented and discussed. That's my opinion on it.
Absolutely. And do it in a way that's important to them. So again, by asking questions before you just start like saying stuff. One of the biggest experiences that I had, the late great Bill Herring was the first sales trainer that I worked with when I got into new home sales. And we were in a big group room, and they had all of the companies in, all the different franchises, and everybody came together, and Bill called on me and he said, Kimberly, what's the most important feature in your model? And, being a newbie, I just started regurgitating something, and I talked about, our structured wiring and blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me and he said, so what? And I'm like, well, Bill, you don't understand. I mean, this is really cool. Like this on cue thing, man, none of our competition has this. And this is the way of the future. And, people got to think ahead. And, and the builder's in the back room, and he's in the back of the room, and he's going, yes, she paid attention during on cue training. But the thing was, I didn't stop and I didn't say, well, Bill, I don't know what the most important feature in my model is until I know what's important to you. What are you looking for in your new home?
Exactly.
And then we talk about those, and that's how you just weave this story in.
Yes.
It's not
storytelling.
A speech. Yes, it's not a speech. It's part of the conversation.
Well, and I love to share this story, to piggyback on your point. we have a client that had a golf course community, and a lady had come to purchase in that community, gated community, and immediately the salesperson threw her on this golf cart, schlepped her out in the 90-degree Florida sun for, oh, I don't know, an hour and a half, showing every aspect of all the golf courses, et cetera, et cetera. They get back to the sales office, and he says, okay, I've showed you all the golf carts or the golf courses. Do you golf? And she said, no, I don't.
Yeah.
She was purchasing in that community because her sister lived there and it was a gated community. So that's like 90 minutes of life nobody's getting back. So you've got to find out what's important to your client before you jump into this dissertation. And what you may think is important may not be. What's important to you in your new home? What are your 3 must-haves? You're out here at a golf course community. Do you golf? Ask that before you schlep them around. Absolutely. In the Florida
especially
heat.
in the heat, yeah, or the rain or the whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny. But back to the point, builder story, just try to weave it in when you're storytelling. And the best way to do that is start with a question. Have you ever built a new home before? Tell me about your experience. If they say, no, I've never built, then you say, you know what, Kimberly, you're in for a treat. If you don't mind, let me share a couple of things about ABC Builder that sets us apart from maybe some of the other builders you'll be visiting today. I mean, it's easy to be able to weave it in there.
It is. It absolutely is. And, builders, sales managers, this is on us, man. We have got to be teaching our on-site agents this stuff. We throw them out there. It hasn't changed in 20 something years that I've been doing this. Day one, I got, here, Mackie, here's the keys, go sell something. Not everybody is going to just scrap their way through it like I did. You got to give them some stuff. So please don't assume these things and work with them. We hit on follow-up before. We're up to number 6 for those of you who are counters and are following on this. So let's briefly touch on it in the interest of time so we make it through the others. But let's talk about the importance of follow-up.
Okay. My main thing about follow-up is that you've got to do it. It's easy to do, but just do it, right? But make it memorable. It can't be, dear Kimberly, thank you so much for visiting 123 Main Street today. Call me if you have any questions. It needs to be something memorable. But the key to the follow-up, if you've done a good job at building the rapport,
bingo,
right? Then you follow up and say, you know what, Kimberly, you mentioned that Cora, Kimberly's daughter in real life, loves to swim. Well, did I mention to you that they're building a YMCA right across the street? Make it memorable. So but that goes back to, see how all of this ties together? It goes back to, if you've built that rapport and now you know who the family is, and, oh, Leah, you have a cow named Elvis. Did I mention to you that, this home offers 5 acres? Now it's relevant to me. It's just not, thanks for showing up. Make your follow, do it, number 1, and number 2, make it memorable. That to me is follow-up.
Yes. And it does not matter what method you use, except use the right one for the buyer. So ask them, what's the best way for me to follow up with you? And I always like to plant a little, a little bomb in there somewhere, like, oh, I'm going to check that out for you. Now, when I get the answer, how do I follow up with you? Is it better to call you? Do you prefer text? Should I email? And then make sure you have that method of following up with them. Text messages get more response than email responses. Phone, if you text first to tell them who you are and why you're calling, the phone will actually get the better response. But because most of us have spam filters and all of that on our phones now, we may not answer from somebody that we don't know who it is. So
I never do. I don't need a car warranty extension. That seems to be the only.
I think I've had 3 of those today.
Right. Before, I just want to share one very, very funny thing to me. When Melinda Brody started this company 30-something years ago, we didn't have the team of shoppers that we have. It was literally Melinda Brody going in and being the secret shopper. And she always remembered that one salesperson had done all of the building of the rapport and everything else. And Melinda mentioned, and this is a true story, she had a bird, like a pet bird, and this bird's name was Scooby. So I know, right? Funny. And this is 30 years ago. So snail mail, when the salesperson was thanking Melinda for coming out to the community, he said, and here's a $5 gift card to, PetSmart. Scooby's next dinner is on me, or something like that. So
now how cool is that?
And she remembered that going back 30 something years. So I like to share that story because that to me is follow-up. That is, I listen to you. I know what's important to you. I'm making this memorable for you. So what do we say? Make it memorable, and do it.
Yes, absolutely. And
Perfect.
Whatever method you use, just make sure, you could have the buyer program your phone number in their cell phone before they leave, so they recognize it's you calling.
Yeah.
Text them, you can use chatbots, you can use your CRM, you can use all kinds of methods, but those tend to be less personal. So
yes.
Do your personal on top of it. So absolutely. Yeah. How about, now this one is, near and dear to my heart. I talk about this all the time, expectation setting. So salespeople, I know you don't like to give bad news. If you want to avoid giving bad news, set expectations for stuff, because stuff happens. Set those expectations regularly, and don't say, oh, well, I told them about it back when they were signing the contract. Yeah, a million things were running through their head that day. Tell them again and again and again. So have stories, make them memorable. One of the things that I would do is my drywall speech, where I would go running into, I'd say, now, once we get to drywall, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come running in and go, oh, there's drywall in my home. Look, I can visualize the rooms. I can start to plan where I'm going to put stuff. And then you're going to come back 3 days later, and the electrician's going to have been through there, and something got buried, and so the screwdriver went through the wall, and there's holes all in the wall. Or they're kicking the carpet, and they kick right through the wall, and now there's a big hole in the wall, and you're going to panic, and you're going to come running in and going, I can't believe my drywall. When they start running into you doing that, then you go, remember when I told you were going to come in here like your hair was on fire? And then they go, oh yeah, you told us that. It doesn't matter what the thing is, whether it's drywall or it's we can't get those windows in for 6 months instead of 4 now. We can't, the appliances, we're going to have to reorder. We're changing. It doesn't matter what it is. You've got to communicate that and be prepared by setting those expectations in advance and then following up on it frequently as you go through, and then say, hey, when I told you there was a chance we wouldn't get the appliances, guess what? You're the 1 in 100 that it worked right for, and you got now you're a winner. Take the wins where you can get them.
Right. Well, and if you've built that rapport with your buyers and you've got that open line of communication, it's a lot easier. I think in watching the head-to-head that you did with Roland a couple of months ago, I thought he brought up an interesting point, and I think a lot of salespeople struggle with this. He said, I hated conflict. I would run a mile to not have to do this conflict. And he said, and I loved him for this, he said, I started watching these other salespeople that were good at conflict, and I learned that. So I think what we have to do is let go of this fear of conflict. When you're building a home, chances are something is not going to go exactly as planned.
Absolutely.
But if you've got the relationship and you've built the trust and you've set the expectations and you're honest with your buyers, they're not going to be mad at you. And I think that's what salespeople, oh my God, they're going to be so angry with me. Not if you've established this relationship and you've set the expectations, and they're going to appreciate the honesty versus, what do you mean you didn't tell me? You never told me this. Well, I was scared you'd get mad. Well, now I'm even madder, right? Yeah. So
sooner is better than later.
Exactly. But I just really liked how he's, and it just said, I had a fear with conflict and having that type of a conversation. And he kind of had to work through that. And the relationships with your buyers are going to be much better if you're open and honest and build that trust.
Yeah. And it's not up to you to decide how they're going to take news. So get out of your own head. Stop getting in your own head and thinking, oh, they're going to be upset. They're going to be this. Some news is just news. It's not good. It's not bad. Don't assign anything to it. It's just news. It's
Right.
not your job to determine how they react, but they will
Exactly.
react much more favorably if you've prepared them for it than when it comes out of the blue. So let's talk about, now I know this one's near and dear to your heart, not understanding or
is.
reading buyers' behavior and the disc that you and I use all the time. Yeah.
And that could be a whole nother head to head. Kimberly has some D, I have some I, there's some head to head going on in there, but disc is basically just understanding buyers' behaviors. The way you might share news with a high D would be very different from the way you share news with a high I or a high S or a high C. And we've got some builders that, you know, through Melinda Brody and Company, utilize the DISC program with all of their prospects and their sales associates. So it's how do you talk, how do you share bad news with somebody who is maybe, you know, very analytical. So they're different. What you could say that DISC is basically saying the same message, but almost translating it in a way that your buyer is going to be more open to hearing that message. And if you haven't done DISC before, I'm sure everybody out here knows what it is, but there's a free survey online that you can do. It's like a 10-minute thing, and it just gives you an idea of where you are. So if you are a high D and you're dealing with a client that's a high S, which is a little more calming, you have to, it's body language, it's tone, it's words that you use. But I think it's very important to realize that, you know, we communicate differently with different people. So, you know, if you're talking with someone who's more analytical, they may want to know the details of why the windows are taking so long. You may want to get into a lot of explanation with that. If you're talking to someone who's a high I, a people person, they don't want to hear all those details. Just tell me when the windows are going to be here. So it's to me, DISC is a aha moment in sales and in interpersonal relationships, in all relationships really, in terms of best practices for communicating good news, bad news, or any news, quite frankly. So it's
eliminating the noise. To me, that's what you know, when you can take it upon yourself to understand who you're talking to, then
what a gift.
Yeah. And you can slow it down, you can speed it up, you know, you can do it in a way that they are going to hear it, that they're going to receive it.
Right. And it also just helps you. Like I had a friend that I used to work with years ago, and he was a high C, which is the very analytical. You would ask him what time it was. He would tell you how to build a clock. I'm a high I have no C. So I would be like, oh my God, he's driving me crazy. But once I learned that that's the way to communicate, the way I communicated with him became very different. And my level of anxiety calmed down because I just understood this is how he communicates. So it's really eye-opening with, again, in sales, very important in sales, but also just in your interpersonal and personal and family relationships as well.
Yeah, and these are all things that, I mean, they involve quite a bit of study. I've spent, you know, years studying DISC. You can take the high level and benefit from it, but if you do a little deeper dive, you're gonna take a lot more away.
And it's important for sales teams too. So, you know, it's just, I can't stress it enough. I'm passionate about DISC, and then we offer it through Melinda Brody and Company now too, but it's pretty eye-opening, that's for sure.
Yeah, I did the program with Quint Lears last month, and we went in way deeper than even DISC goes. So there's a little bit on there too, if anybody wants to look at that. Let's combine 9 and 10 in the interest of time. We're almost to the top of the hour here, but and I think we've touched on a couple of these. So talking instead of listening. I always say the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly. And then the other is not asking the right questions.
Yeah. Well, I think the talking instead of listening is, we're so, like you just said earlier, we're so excited about our product and we want to share so much. But if you're just throwing this information out, you know, it's almost like envision a funnel. You know, you dump all this information in, but it's really the little droplets that they retain that's important. So it's important to ask the right questions so you're not just regurgitating and dumping all of this information, so that you are listening, asking the right questions to be able to personalize and customize that sales presentation specific to their needs. The other thing on not asking the right questions is, so many times in video shops, I see it all the time. Well, do you like it? Yes, no. You know, we ask closed-ended questions versus Tell me what it is you like about this. Let's rank the 3 models that we've seen. Which one's your favorite? You know, it really utilizing your questions to do one thing and one thing only, and that's engage. Because we all know, back to DISC, there are going to be some people that will tell you everything, more than you've ever wanted to know. Yeah. But there are a lot of people out there that are going to be like, it's fine, okay, yeah. So how do we get them to engage? By asking open-ended questions. Tell me specifically about this floor plan, what you like. Which one of the 3 elevations that you've seen do you like? Making it engaging versus yes, no questions, and trying to listen more than you talk. In the Ninja Selling book, I think there's something like a good salesperson should be speaking about 20% of the time. The other 80% of the time, it should be your prospect. Imagine that. I would tell you in video shops that we see, it's quite the other way around. Yes. It's salesperson talking 80% of the time. And you know, back to DISC too, salespeople, we love people. We love to talk. We want to share everything. So it's a little bit, hey, I got to reel this in and flip it around a little bit, because I will guarantee you, if you listen, they're going to tell you everything you need to know to sell them a home. They really are.
I go, you know, when I'm visiting my builders all over the country, and a prospect comes in, I don't have to know price, or, you know, I don't have to know a whole bunch of stuff, because I know the questions to ask to get the prospect through the process.
Yes.
You know, and then I might have to go ask somebody else for the answers and the solutions for these things. But at least, you know, I've got enough by asking the questions. Salespeople tell me, oh, I've got to learn my product. I've got to learn my product. And I'm like, yes, you do. But at the right time. When you're new, it's more important to me that you learn the right questions to ask, and that you're listening and you can pick up on those key importances, then to be able to help that buyer, and to know when you have a buyer who might be a good fit for your homes, because your homes are not going to be built for everybody.
Right.
They're not going to work for everybody.
Right. Right. I would agree.
Yeah, so we're at the top of the hour. Any parting thoughts? Anybody have anything in the chat? Thanks for sticking with us. We've got such a good group sticking with us here.
And I just want to throw 2 things in while you're looking at the chat. Number 1 is, as I mentioned earlier, you can go to melindabrody.com and sign up for our newsletter, Sales Tips and Clips, and we'll share with you lots of cool things that are relevant to the industry and things we see in shops. And the other thing we didn't touch on, but I just want to throw it out there, don't fear the video shop. Don't fear the video shop. These are great tools for you to improve your sales presentation. Think of it as a gift to be able to see yourself in action. I coach with a lot of people that are very apprehensive. Oh my God, I'm so nervous about it. But when you get past, I look fat and my voice sounds stupid, and you really start to get to the meat, there's some great takeaways. And a video shop also shows you what you do well. It's not necessarily just, oh my God, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, you are the best closer we've ever seen. Or look at your strategy for overcoming objections. What we've seen builders do now, Kimberly, during this market where things are a little bit slower, is they're actually taking video shops of some of their best salespeople and using it as training. Kimberly did a great job here of overcoming objections. Let's show it during the sales meeting, and we're going to talk about overcoming objections. So a lot of the things from the benchmark study, you know, utilize that to reward and recognize some of your people that really excel at these strengths. So it's a good thing. And I know it's scary at first, but most top producers that I deal with, and Kimberly, you probably can agree, they want to be video shop. Bring it on. How can I get better? I want to see how I did. I want to see where I need to work, where I might need improvement. So don't fear the video shop.
Absolutely not. And, you know, we know that growth happens out of the comfort zone.
Yes.
And yes, video shops do pull you out of your comfort zone, but if you look at them in the right way, and I encourage you to look at them 2, 3, 4 times, because you start to get used to seeing yourself. Yeah. And then you can focus on, hey, you know what? I kind of did that really well. Or, yeah, oh boy, I need to work on that.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize how that sounded. So, you know, you got to get past seeing yourself on video. And hopefully now that we all Zoom all over the place, we've reached that point. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Leah, thank you. What a treat to do this.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. I've loved it, loved it, loved it. You guys got a sneak peek of the Kimberly-Leah conversation. So thank you for having me, and thanks to all who joined us. It was a wonderful way to spend a Tuesday afternoon. And we didn't even have to get physical this time,
We
Kimberly.
did not, absolutely not. So, and I will send video out to everybody, so you will have that. You will also have all the links that Leah and I both mentioned for you. So again, thanks for joining us. Everybody have a great Tuesday. I'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.